Thank you all for coming to what we know will be an important and inspiring evening. My name is Paul Rieckhoff. I am the founder and president of Independent Veterans of America, which was founded just 2 months ago on July 4th, Independence Day, or Independence Day. And this room and this building are fitting. Come on in, y'all. Come past this. Z, lead everybody past the camera. Come on. I know almost all of you, and none of you are shy. Mackie, come on in. Everybody, come on in. Yinka, you can't hide in the back. Come on, grab some food. Eric, everybody. We got lots of chairs up front. Please, come on in and make yourselves comfortable. Dan, Shelane, Tyrell, maybe you guys could come on down front. And you guys can start by giving them a round of applause, please. We're going to hear from them in a second. But I want to start by telling y'all where you are. If you don't know, this is Fraunces Tavern. And this was George Washington's bar. This is where, in that room back there in the Washington room, General George Washington said that he would not be king. He resigned his commission to his soldiers and set the path for our nation. And he was the first independent American, the first independent American veteran. Woo! Give it up for George Washington. Unfortunately, he was our last independent president. But he set the tone for our nation, and it's a perfect place for us to come together now to recognize and celebrate and support a new generation of leaders that are pushing our country in the right direction at the right time for all Americans. And today is the right day to do it. And I want to thank you all for being here today. It's 9/11, and every 9/11 is different. But 23 years ago, just a few blocks from here, our world changed. And the world of our children and our grandchildren and people all around the world changed. And on that day, I was on 24th Street. I had just quit my job working on 60 Wall Street, not far from here, just a couple feet from here, actually. And a few hours after the first hit on the towers, I was, like so many others, down here trying to do what I can. And what I always remember about that time is the magnitude of it, just the size of the emotion, the size of the space, the size of everything. And I always tell people, the only thing I can compare it to is the first time I saw the Grand Canyon. I could not explain what the Grand Canyon looks like until I stood over it. And that's how I felt on 9/11. And I was struck by the carnage and the loss and the pain. But what I always remember most, and I talk to my kids about, is about how people came together. Right here in these streets, when they were covered with dust, people came together and supported each other. There were no Democrats and Republicans. There was no red and blue. We were all Americans of all different kinds, of all different backgrounds, united as one. And that spirit is what I think is most important about 9/11. I never could have imagined 23 years ago that I would live in this neighborhood, that my kids would live in this neighborhood, that there would be dog parks and beautiful public schools and a vibrant, fantastic community in the same place where we lost so many of our fellow citizens. And a lot of my kids' friends' parents are in this room, and we live in this community. And 23 years ago, I never would have thought that was possible, but that is a testament to this nation and to the courage of its people and to what we can do when we work together. And it's a striking backdrop when last night we had arguably the most divisive presidential debate in history. And today we try to come together. It might have been the only way, other than the debate, you could get Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in the same place, was at the World Trade Center a couple of hours ago, just down the street. President Biden was there. And there is something that is still sacred, and is that understanding of what this day means and what this country means and what we're capable of when we're together. And that's the spirit that is guiding this new movement, the independent veterans movement and the broader independent movement. You all have probably seen the statistics, but over 50% of Americans consider themselves independent and unaffiliated. More Americans want none of the above than want Democrats or Republicans. And they come from all backgrounds, just like all of you in this room. And there's a generation of veterans in particular who answered the call after 9/11, who put the uniform on to serve their country, and when they came home, they wanted to continue to serve, but they didn't want to pick a side. They didn't want to pick a red jersey or a blue jersey. They wanted to wear the same jersey of the American public, but there wasn't really a path. And it's a very difficult path. And what we're trying to do right now, in the same way the founders did, is carve a new path, making it viable for independent veterans to run for office and to win. And in order to do that, they need a cavalry. They need support. They need money. And tonight, you're going to hear from three of the most inspiring leaders I've met in a while, and three of the 9 candidates that IVA was proud to endorse just yesterday. Our first round of endorsements, 9 candidates from 6 states, from South Dakota to Florida, from the United States Senate to county executive. We are supporting veterans who are stepping up to lead, who went through our vetting process, who are independent, and who we think represent a new kind of leadership. So, yeah, you can clap for that, please. You're also going to hear from Andrew Yang, who is on his way from a plane right now. He should be here in a couple of minutes, who's been one of many great supporters of this movement. He was one of the first people who told me he'd be down to help when I said I was going to create an organization to help elect independent veterans. You'll hear from him as well. But you're going to hear from 3 amazing people: Tyrell Hicks, Shelane, Etchison, and Dan Osborn. They come from 3 different places. They come from 3 different backgrounds. They're running for 3 different kinds of offices, but you're going to hear a commonality. You're going to hear a tone. You're going to hear a spirit that is a lot like the spirit we saw on 9/11, that binds them together. And that's what we're building on. These 9 candidates are the first wave. Every year going forward, we want more waves of more veterans who are running for office at all levels in all states, and maybe one day for president. But it starts with this first 9, and it starts with the 3 that are in this room. Before I go any further, I just want to thank everybody for making this happen. It's a hard thing to pull together events. I haven't done them as often as I used to, but there are a lot of folks who helped make this happen. Most of all, the folks from Fraunces Tavern, who welcomed me. You please give them a round of applause. And thank you to the Spirit of George Washington. John and Jeremy and our friends from Open Primary, who helped sponsor this evening. Thank you to you guys. Yinka and Eric and the folks from Veterans for All Voters Action, thank you for being here. You guys have set the way, and I hope that both of them will run one day soon as well. And maybe most of all, our family and friends. And Chris Rosenthal has been an intrepid leader for us in making this happen. Our old friend Bill Schultz is here, my wife Lauren, and so many other folks that helped get this thing going. Starting something new is really hard. And starting something political that's new is very, very hard. And it takes a team, it takes a family, and it takes an army. And that's what we're building. And just like George Washington started down the hall building something that became great, that's what we're trying to do. So I'm going to start by introducing a Marine, because Marines are usually the first ones in. Right? If you ask the Army guys, they may debate. We could debate this one all day long at the bar afterward. But on my show, Independent Americans, I've had the honor of interviewing folks from all different backgrounds. And one thing I like to do is cut through the bullshit. And from the moment I first heard this man speak, I heard truth. I heard honesty. I heard power. And I heard patriotism. And he jumped on a plane all the way from Florida. When I first interviewed him, he was actually in Okinawa, where he had served, and he has family connections, and he did a Zoom on my show all the way from Okinawa. But he's an incredible leader. He is running for the Florida House in the 68th District. Like all the folks you hear from tonight, I encourage you to support them directly. I encourage you to support us at IVA, but also know that everything you do will not just help them compete in the fall, but will help them on their trajectory as leaders which will continue for decades to come. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in the Marine. Any Marines in the house? Let me try that again. Any Marines in the house? You're going to have to sound off for all of them. My friend, Tyrell Hicks.
First, thank you all for being here. It's a great honor, both as a Marine veteran and as a candidate, to receive the endorsement from IVA, to have the support of an organization that understands the values of service, sacrifice, and commitment to our country. I don't have enough words for it, and I'm sure the other candidates feel the same. Finding people, motivating people, it's a difficult thing to do. And especially in the political climate that we face nowadays. The divisiveness, we want better. So thank you all for being here. Every year on September 11th, we come together to honor those that we lost 23 years ago in the darkest, some would say the most dark moment in our country's history. We remember the first responders who ran towards danger with concerns for their own safety, the service members who stood up to protect our rights and freedoms, and then the countless families who lost loved ones on that tragic day. It's a day that forever will mark the strength and resilience that is the American dream. We came together after 9/11 in ways that many of us have never seen before. We weren't divided by race, religion. We didn't come together as Democrats or Republicans or independents. We came together as Americans, and we mourned together, and we rebuilt together. But then at the end of the day, we realized that the thing that made us powerful, the unity that brought us together, the thing that united us, made us the best that we could be at our darkest hour. It was a day of tragedy and it was a day of loss, but it was also a day of great unity. We can have that again. Right now, the political climate in our country is worse than anybody's ever seen it in anybody's lifetime. We're more divided than we've ever been, and we have the opportunity to do better. Unity isn't just a word we throw around. It is a foundation of our democracy. It's what makes us resilient, strong, and capable of facing any challenge. However, if we're divided, we are weak, vulnerable, and more easily harmed by those who would seek to do us harm. As veterans, many of us have experienced the power of unity firsthand. When you're on the front lines, it doesn't matter where you come from, what you believe, or what your political background is. All that matters is that you have each other's backs. You learn early on that the strength of your unit is because you band together, you stand together, and you face adversity as one. Veterans have a unique responsibility as we go forward. We have a responsibility to bring our communities together. We've been trained as leaders. We've been trained to serve, and more than anything else, we've been trained to put the mission above all else. Right now, our mission is to bring our communities together, and we can do it. It's not an impossible task. It's an easy ask. Reaching out to your neighbor, ensuring that they have what they need and that they understand that you care about them. We all want the same things. We want good schools. We want safe communities. And we can have those things together. Today we face numerous challenges that require a united front. From the ongoing battle against extremism and hate, to the pressing need for criminal justice reform, affordable housing, and better schools for our children. These are not problems that can be solved in isolation. They require cooperation, compromise, and a collective will to do what is right for all Americans, not just a select few. That is why I'm running for state representative in Florida House District 68. I believe that government should be a force for unity, not division. We need leaders who are willing to listen and find solutions that benefit all Americans. Whether it's ensuring every Floridian has access to quality education, addressing the affordable housing crisis, or fighting for veterans' rights. My goal are to bring people together to achieve real, lasting change. As we remember the heroes of 9/11, those who gave their lives to save others, the first responders who ran towards danger, and the ordinary citizens who became extraordinary in a moment of crisis, we must honor their legacy by committing ourselves to the ideals they embodied. They showed the best of humanity in the worst of times. Their sacrifice should serve as a reminder that we are stronger together. In conclusion, let us carry forward the spirit of unity that emerged from the ashes of 9/11. Let us reject the forces that seek to divide us and embrace the common bonds that hold us together. We owe it to those who came before us, those who will come after us, and to ourselves to ensure that America remains a beacon of hope, freedom, and unity. Thank you.
You and I had a conversation on my show,
Yes, sir.
and you said something I said you should put on a t-shirt.
And it was,
Can you tell?
so they should do fucking better.
They should do fucking better, is what he said.
My campaign,
They told me not to say.
You're
You're in New York, you can say the F-bomb. You're in New York, you can say fuck.
A lot of churches where I live.
And can I ask you one more question, Tyrell? So, I want you guys to understand, this is a competition. He is running against someone in the fall. He is running in a small, local, state race. Tell folks who you're running against, and tell them what you're up against.
So I have the incumbent Republican's name is Lawrence McClure. Guy's a huge scumbag. He sponsored a bill to put radioactive materials in our roads and whatnot, which is kind of what got me started on the political road. He's the number 6 most powerful unknown Republican in the state of Florida, the chair of the Appropriations Committee. And then I also have a Democratic opponent who jumped in late after the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the approval of Amendment 4, which is abortion, reproductive health care on the Florida ballot. They jumped in late. So I have 2 opponents. Florida's, like most places, it's a big money race, so the incumbent raises huge amounts of money. Independents, like most of you know, we don't get the same airtime and funding that the 2 parties have, and we just don't have the party apparatus that exists in the duopoly between the Democrats and the Republicans. So the fact that the IVA is standing up and bringing us together so that we have a platform that we can use to project our voices and tell people that we can have better, that what they see isn't the only thing that exists out there, and that there are people out there that are doing the hard work to have good things and have a better America that's more inclusive for all of us.
Thank you, sir. Do fucking better. Put it on the t-shirts, people. Tyrell brings the spirit, and he's a perfect leadoff hitter. He's going to set the tone for the folks you're going to hear from to come. He's courageous. He's not afraid to take on big odds. He's not afraid to speak the truth, and he's inspirational, just like our next speaker. When we started this idea, there are a couple people I called up first, and I've been honored to have an impressive group of advisors that have been supportive, including our friends like John Updike and Eric Bronner and Yinka Folletti. And when I called Andrew Yang, he said, I'm in. And Andrew Yang is a Knicks fan like I am. And he is not afraid to take a big shot. And I wish you were mayor right now. There are a lot of people that would much rather have you mayor than the disaster we've got going on in this city right now. But maybe that's a conversation for another time. But Andrew is challenging the status quo. And Andrew and the Forward Party and his personal network have understood and appreciated and supported veterans. He understands the unique political power that we present, and he's a true friend to all veterans. And I'm honored to have him here tonight and honored to have him on our team, our friend Andrew Yang.
Hey everyone, it's a privilege to be here with you all. Someone said to me when I was running for president 4 years ago that if America is a religion, military veterans are its clergy, and that really stuck with me. In that context, today is something of a holy day. How many of you were, a lot of you were in from out of town, thank you for coming. How many of you were here in New York during 9/11? So you remember that day the same way I do. And for me, I was a young man at the time, watching the towers smoke and begin to collapse, and then the people in my office said, we should get the heck out of here. Since we were in Manhattan, we were close to the Empire State Building, and at the time you thought, well, shoot, you don't know what happens next. So I will remember for the rest of my life, walking uptown away from the towers. Beautiful day, but the smoke was very clear. Surrounded by hundreds of silent New Yorkers, just not a word. Some of us were looking at our phone and just walking away, and it felt like a force of nature. You know, it's like that everyone was just leaving and heading away from the towers. But then there were those brave few who were heading the other direction, who were heading downtown to see if they could help, to see if they could save others' lives. And that's what this day always has meant to me. It's the people that went toward the towers and who never saw their families again, in many cases. I had friends who lost their lives that day. I got into public life a bit later. When, in my case, I got into public life because Donald Trump became president in 2016. I thought, wow, this is a signal to the accelerating decline of America. And when I was on the trail, it was military veterans that gave me some of the biggest uplift. I cannot tell you how many challenge coins I received, but I mean that in the best of possible ways. And I was like, holy shit, like you see in me a kindred spirit. Like you get the mission. You know, and showing up in Iowa and Ohio and New Hampshire, the magical Asian man from the future wants to give everyone money. But there was always this sense, you know, this curiosity. It's like, and the veterans would come to an event that I would have and just size me up. And then afterwards they were like, you're legit. You're a real person. It's like, damn right I am. And the reason is that you would figure that there were only two possible reasons I could have been there in Iowa making the case to folks about trying to bring the country back together and start solving some of the problems that, in my view, brought Donald Trump to office. Number one is that I was a complete narcissistic lunatic, or number two is that I actually loved this country and was there for the right reasons. And as soon as military veterans figured out that it was number two, they're like, I'm in. There was like a military veterans for Yang contingent that anytime I saw them on the trail, invigorated me, pumped me up. There were military veterans who told me that the reason they're alive was because of mushrooms and psychedelics, and that actually turned me on to that. I was like, well, shit, man. I mean, if you hear that from enough military veterans, like if you're alive because of that, then we should be heading in that direction. And when Paul did call me, I thought, independent veterans of America, I love all three of those things. And I dare say that if this country ends up on a better track, it's going to be because of independent veterans who have stood up and said, you know what, we deserve better. The people who are running for office in this room are better. If they win, we will be in a much better place. I've gotten to know a few of them before tonight. I'm thrilled to be supporting them, and those of you I don't know, I'll be thrilled to get to know you as well. Please do talk to me and Matt and Forward, because I dare say that what motivates independent veterans to step up and run is the same thing that motivates me and Matt and many, many other people in the Forward Party. It's a thrill to be here at the ground floor of what Paul and the team are building. Great to see friends like John Updike and Eric Bronner. And this is a holy day in the American religion. You all are among the best hopes for the country. That's why I'm here, and I hope you hold that in your heart as you go on this journey, because as someone who's run for office, I know the journey is very personal, and it's different than you thought, right? Like, you decided to run, you're like, hey, I think it's going to be one thing, it turns out it's something else, am I right? You know what I mean? And it's more personal than you thought. It tests you, but it also does bring out in you the truth of why you're doing what you're doing. And it deepens your conviction, it strengthens your resolve, and it makes you capable of incredible superhuman things, which is exactly what the country needs right now. Thrilled to be here with you all, and let's get some of you over the finish line and win your fucking races.
Thank you, Andrew. Everybody who's doing this is stepping up to lead, but what I learned is that leadership requires sacrifice. Andrew is a real human, and he's also a real dad, and he cares very deeply about his family, and he takes a lot of time away from his family to do this kind of work and to lift other people up, and that, in my view, is real leadership, is sacrifice and selflessness, and he sets that example, and he sets an example for our children that we can be proud of. Andrew Yang is a man with character and integrity, and even if you don't agree with his politics, you have to recognize that he's someone that our kids can look up to, and I'm grateful for that in particular, especially on a day like today. And that's true of all the folks you're going to hear from today. My kids have begun to kind of like 9/11, because if you live in our neighborhood, it's the biggest parade of fire trucks you ever see in your life. Every single kind of fire vehicle, boat, airplane, helicopter, you see it all. We saw the president go by in the Beast. We saw the 343 fire ship out on the Hudson. And my kids know that it's a day for the helpers. Because Mr. Rogers, one of my favorite Americans, said that when times are tough, look for the helpers, the people who run in when other people are running out. And that's what every one of these leaders is, and especially the next speaker. Shelane Etchison is kind of like a real-life superhero. When you look at her resume and you hear her background, she's the kind of person that you hope your kids grow up to be like. She's brave, she's tough, she's smart, and she's making a lot of noise in all the right ways. She's taken on a Republican and a Democrat, and she's running in North Carolina in the area where Fort Liberty is, which used to be Fort Bragg. And to give you an example of how powerful someone like Shelane can be, she's served alongside special operations, she's been through a ton of different Army schools, she's been around the world, and she's running to represent Fort Liberty, I'm always going to call it Fort Bragg, but Fort Liberty, against a Republican incumbent who never served in the military. So imagine being from that community where Fort Liberty is so essential to everything, and having someone represent you who doesn't know much about that place and never served that place. Well, Shelane has been there, and she's done that, and she's making national waves, and she's running for Congress to represent the people from that community. And she is a force to be reckoned with. And we're honored to have her here tonight, our friend Shelane Etchison.
I too will call it Fort Bragg, just force of habit here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Paul, so much for putting this on. It really means a lot. It's good to know that there's so many people like you in our corner and have our backs as we take on this crazy endeavor of running for office and doing it as an independent. But it really is an honor to be able to share a little bit more about me, my background, and why I'm running, and in particular doing it right here on the anniversary of 9/11. Very solemn day for our country that undoubtedly changed so many lives here in this room and our country. And I'm no different. I mean, I was a teenage girl sitting in my public school classroom in Florida watching these horrific events unfold on TV. I'd never been to New York City. I don't have any ties here. No military ties in my family either, but I could not turn away with the events that were unfolding and the attacks that were happening on our particular way of life here in America. And that stuck with me. I watched, our nation's response to this event, and I just kept coming back to saying, someone has to go fight and defend our ideals. Why not me? So kind of scared and timid, I ultimately made the decision to join the Army after college, and had a pretty extraordinary career. I was just looking to do the minimum 4 years. I ended up staying for 11 years. I served as a young 23-year-old in Ramadi, Iraq, leading a platoon of soldiers. At 25, I was selected for an inaugural pilot program under the umbrella of special operations, deploying just a handful of women on combat missions with Army Rangers and Navy SEALs in Afghanistan. Mind you, this was at a time when women were barred from combat. There were 20 of us across the whole Army that were selected to do this. And I happened to be one of them.
Oh, yeah.
I served in Helmand, Afghanistan, arguably one of the most dangerous places in the world at the time, with the 75th Ranger Regiment. And I'm really proud to say that myself and my female colleagues at the time, our success in that program ultimately was used as evidence and testimony in front of Congress, actually, to ultimately rescind the women in combat ban a couple years thereafter. I ended up finishing out my military career at the tip of Special Operations at Fort Bragg, which is home of Army Special Operations. I served in Syria as one of the first, actually the first women there, in late 2015, early 2016, fighting against ISIS and embedding with the Kurdish female fighters there. And I served elsewhere in the Middle East. A lot of that's classified. But I had a really tremendous career, and I gave it my all for that 11 years in the military. And it really gives you a lot of perspective on how great we have it here in this country. So somehow, Florida public school girl got into Harvard after leaving the military. And my plan was to work kind of in the private sector and, you know, put those degrees to use, make some money. But much like watching the events of 9/11 and not being able to turn away, I feel that same way about our country right now. And this slow decline. We all see it, we feel it, we know it, and we deserve better. And it's no accident that half of Americans are now politically independent because of the polarizations and the divisions that we're experiencing. I'm not okay with 40% of Americans thinking that we're on the precipice of a civil war. I'm not okay with young people no longer being proud to be from this country. I'm not okay with our elected leaders in Congress failing to do their most basic jobs because they're putting their loyalty to their political party over our country. Not okay with that. So same question. Someone has to do this. Why not me? So I made the pretty crazy decision last year to put my hat in the ring and run for Congress in North Carolina. But I wanted to walk the walk and do it as an independent. And I'm proud to say that I'm the very first person in North Carolina history to qualify for the ballot as an unaffiliated or independent candidate at the congressional level. It wasn't easy, of course, for so many reasons that we know. We had to get thousands and thousands and thousands of signatures. My team and I got just shy of 13,000 signatures in a short 7 weeks in the winter months of January and February. But thank God I'm running in a district that has a lot of military friends in it, so we sure know how to put together a main operation and get things done. And it also, yes, it was challenging, but in the same breath it wasn't. So many people were eager to sign and see an independent option on their ballot. The thesis stands correct, that the American voters want something different, they want better. We just need to find the right people to stand up and do it and to support them. So this is an amazing movement that you're putting together, Paul, and so many Forward Party and so many people in this room to prop up independent candidates and support them. And really, this is only just the beginning. I have no illusions this is a tough road, but change happens incrementally, brick by brick. That's how we've advanced our country over the centuries. And so I really believe in this movement, and I'm very proud to be part of it and doing my part in North Carolina. So thank you all for being here tonight and showing us your support. It's very welcomed. And again, thank you, Paul, and everyone here. Hold on, I have one more.
Go.
As if running independent isn't hard enough, I decided to do it 5 months pregnant.
How do you follow that, right? murderer's row. Yankees got a heck of a lineup right now, but so do we in this room. And now you're seeing what's cooking. And this is the early days, but Shelane is competitive. Shelane is focused, and Shalane's a winner. So what we're asking you to do tonight is bet on Shelane, and bet on Tyrell, and bet on this movement. It starts with what I've called the plank owners. In the Navy, you've got plank owners, the people who were on the first ship when it set out, the very first crew. And that's what these men and women are. They're the plank owners of this movement. So support her, support Tyrell, and support the Navy guy coming up. You had the Marine Corps.
Go Navy.
Yeah, okay. I didn't ask. Where are the Army people? Who? Thank you, thank you. Any Navy people here?
Yeah, go Navy.
All right. Any Coast Guard? How about Space Force? That's a thing. That's a thing. All these people are like, Space Force? I'm like, yeah, it's a thing. It's a Trump thing. It's a thing. But the Navy is going to back cleanup tonight. And as we talk about this movement, I want you all to understand something. This is not just about platitudes or philosophies or theories of change. It's about being competitive and winning. And the man you're going to hear from right now is running for United States Senate from Nebraska, and he is neck and neck with the Republican incumbent. He's an organizer, he's an activist, and he's, like Andrew and everybody else you've heard from tonight, a real human being. A person who's got integrity, a person who's not afraid to call it like it is, or wear a baseball cap and a shirt from his favorite football team. And that's the kind of earnest, honest leadership we need, and that's why the people of Nebraska are responding. Another great advisor and friend of mine is Medal of Honor recipient Bob Kerrey, who has also gotten behind this man along with many others. I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. These are the kind of leaders you need to get behind. And I'm very proud to introduce you to our friend all the way from Nebraska, Dan Osborn.
My name's Dan Osborn. I'm an independent. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that kind of party. I take this thing off? No? I'll stand here. It's okay. Killing my mojo.
Sorry.
That's no worries.
Your mojo's indestructible.
Well, I'm Dan Osborn. Like you said, from Nebraska. I'm running against Republican Senator Fisher as an independent candidate. I mean, New York on 9/11. Who could have thought that I'd be here? So I'm not going to say too much about that because I get emotional about that. But a little bit about me, if you don't already know. If you do, good time to text your friends, phone a friend. I joined the Navy right out of high school. My grandfather retired from the Navy. This is his 1955 officer candidate school ring. My mom and dad, they both met while they were in the Navy. My uncles were all in the Navy. And then my older brother joined the Marine Corps. So we don't talk to him anymore. Sorry about that. We actually kicked him out of the state. He lives in Oklahoma. But I did 2 Western Pacific tours aboard the USS Constellation. You know, as a young man, that's a good experience. You get to go see the world. You know, there's no better educator than traveling. But I got out of the Navy with an honorable discharge. I came back to Omaha, where I'm from. I started attending the University of Nebraska in Omaha. I then continued my service with the Nebraska Army National Guard. So I don't know if you can consider that Army, maybe half Army, I don't know. That's all right. But after 9/11, I was in the Guard that day. I called my unit 167 cavalry. I was a 19 kilo on M1A1 Abrams tank crew. I called my unit and I'm like, hey, let's go. And they're like, hey, idiot, go to work. I'm like, oh, all right, I guess I'm going to work. But I did transfer my duty to the Tennessee National Guard so I could work at Fort Knox, battle ready and M1A1 Abrams tanks crew, tanks to send overseas. But I did those things while going to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. I made it to my junior year, but then my life changed. As a lot of us, our lives change when we have a kid. My wife had my first daughter, Georgia, who is now a classically trained professional dancer in Hollywood. So, yeah. And I'll show you the moves that I taught her here after this. Well, maybe downstairs after the bar, a few drinks. But I knew when she was born, I had to go get some gainful employment. And I created this family. So I got a job working at Kellogg's, the cereal manufacturer, as an industrial mechanic. One of my first days on the job, an old Polish guy by the name of Ron Jabowski. Any Polish people in here? Hey, there you go. All right, I'll refrain from telling jokes, and I had a good one. But he looked like Tom Selleck from Magnum P.I., and he came up to me and he said, "Hey kid, have you joined the union yet?" I said, "No sir, I have not." And he goes, "Well, you might want to think about doing that." I'm like, "Oh crap, Tom Selleck's telling me to join the union, I better go do that." So I did, and I paid my dues, I kept my head down, I worked for a lot of years, just providing for my family. Kellogg's used to be very family-friendly oriented. The founder, W.K. Kellogg, was all about his people as number one resource. The old guys used to take care of the union business. Well, over the years, the old guys started to retire. I became one of the old guys, and Kellogg's became more beholden to their stockholders. It's a story as old as time, right? Corporate greed. So I decided to run for my executive board because we started to lose on some contracts. I got elected as vice president. About 3 months later, the president stepped down, complete changing in the guard for that e-board, because you get yelled at a lot in that role by both your members and management. But I knew the role was important, so I assumed it. And this is kind of where my origin story starts into politics. I haven't always been political, but COVID hit us. And during that time as essential workers, there's 4 North American plants under the umbrella of our master contract. We were all, as essential workers, again, working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. At one point in time, 50% of our workforce was forced quarantine and or sick. But we kept the plants running at 100% capacity, and we made Kellogg's record profits. They went from $19 billion to $21 billion. The CEO gave himself a $2 million raise. The board enriched themselves. The stockholders enriched themselves. And I got a coffee cup that said Essential Workers on it. That's a nice coffee cup. But our contract expired that year. I kind of figured it'd be a no-brainer that we would get our little sliver of the pie. But instead, Kellogg sat across the table from us and they said, we're going to go after your health insurance. We're going to go after your cost of living wage adjustment, which was our only form of wage increases designed to keep us even with inflation, and we all know how that's gone. And then we're going to implement a 2-tier wage system with no path for a lower tier employee to go to the upper tier. So effectively, everybody's going to be on the lower tier. So since I'm in New York, I can cuss. For me as president, that was my own shit moment. There hadn't been a strike in Nebraska since 1972. So I had to figure out what that meant. How to pick it, where to pick it, why to pick it. Try to drum up early support. So when October 5th midnight rolled around, we could not come to an agreement. It is still my position today that Kellogg's had no intention of coming to an agreement. They actually spent $700 million to break the union. So we shut down 4 North American plants and we walked off the job to preserve our wages and benefits. One of the hardest things, thank you. Definitely one of the hardest things I had to do, take 500 of my friends, their families, into the great unknown, not knowing if we're going to have a job at the end of it. But we all felt that we were on the right side of history. And I knew Democrats were going to come out and support, because that's what they do. They traditionally support organized labor. But me, I've always been an independent. Since the voter registry before that, 2004, way before that. So over 20 years I've been an independent-minded thinking person. So I set out, I didn't see men or women, black or white, Republican or Democrat on the picket line. I saw people that wanted to go to work for a good wage and some benefits for the time that they're trading of their lives to the company. So I got a hold of Republican Congressman Don Bacon from the 2nd District in Nebraska. I got a meeting set up, a 10-minute meeting set up with one of his guys. Well, that 10-minute meeting turned into about 2 hours. I kind of got in trouble that night too with my wife because it was supposed to be 10 minutes. So. But I think you know, the moral of that story is you put a human face and a human emotion to an idea or an issue, it can change minds. And it did. And Congressman Bacon came out to the picket line and shook hands with my members, supporting what we were doing. I then saw Governor Pete Ricketts, now U.S. Senator Pete Ricketts from Nebraska, at an event I was at for a sheriff. And I cornered him. I told him who I was and what was going on in his state. He agreed to meet me at the Capitol. And so I drove out to Lincoln a few days later, met with him and his team, and long story short there, he drafted a letter and sent it to Steve K. Shelane, imploring him to get our people back to work. Well, we were on strike for 77 days. We settled just before Christmas, thankfully. But I remember walking back into my manufacturing plant, just feeling an enormous sense of pride what we were able to accomplish. 500 jobs in Nebraska, 1,500 around the country we preserved for what we did. And that's why I'm doing this today. That's why I'm running for United States Senate. Because there's nobody like me in the United States. There's nobody like us in the United States Senate. It's, first of all, I'd be the only one in the U.S. Senate with a union card in my wallet. That means something to me. But I'll tell you what, I feel like it's a country club of millionaires that work for billionaires. Robin Williams, well, I'll start with this, and then I'll get back to Robin Williams now that everybody's curiosity is piqued. Robin Williams, but less than 2% of elected officials in both the House and Senate come from the working class. Complete misrepresentation of the demographics of people in my state and around this country. But Robin Williams, late great Robin Williams, I should say, late great Robin Williams. Sorry, that was my attempt. You guys know who that was, right? All right. But he said, you know, and he said it best. He said our elected officials should be wearing NASCAR jackets with patches of their sponsors so we know how they're going to vote. And Senator Fisher, my opponent's no different. She takes money from Class 1 railroads, votes against workers in the railroad, and votes against the Railroad Safety Act. She takes money from Boeing, Facebook, Big Four meat packers, and my state's big meat packing state. So you know, that's what's really important to us on this campaign, and I think that's what the independent piece is going to bring to this as well. Campaign finance reform, ending Citizens United. Corporations are not people and money is not free speech. You shouldn't be able to donate an unlimited amount of money to a campaign's independent expenditure. The independent expenditure shouldn't even exist. I want to get back to the way the founding fathers in this room, well not this room, but you know, this area, also the way they intended it, right? A government for and by the people, not a government for the 1% and corporations. And that's the message that's winning in Nebraska. That's why I'm polling within the margin of error Senator Fisher. She's at 39, I'm at 38. 23% of respondents in Nebraska are undecided. Of those 23 respondents, a lot of them are independent people, a lot of them are Democrats. Of the 45% of conservative people, the majority of them are never Trumpers. So we have a clear path to victory. I got to get my message out to people, because that's the message that's resonating. I'm doing something nobody else in the country's doing. I get invited to GOP county meetings. I get standing ovations in those rooms. I get invited to libertarian conferences, get standing ovations in those rooms. I got invited to a Dodge County Tea Party in Fremont, Nebraska, 27,000 people in that city. They're leaving with Osborn yard signs. You know, it's amazing. We're bringing people together, and I think that's what the independent piece is, right? We bring people together. We're tired of this divide. We're tired of this polarization. We are tired of having our politics being tribal and fighting. And they're kicking the can down the road on border bills. They're kicking the can down the road on the farm bill. The farm bill expires September 30th. They kick that down the road and they politicize it, and we don't get anything done. Our farmers lose. Our welfare system's broken, it loses. So those are the things I mean, those are real life things that we gotta do it. So to end this, I'm gonna end this with a call to action in this room. I mean, we're all here. My crowds are bigger than Senator Fisher's. But, actually, we've had 130 publicly advertised events in Nebraska, and she's had 0. She does private events, and that's it. But that's why we're winning too, right? She's not going to outwork me. I can guarantee that. But the call to action is my colleague Dan Moroff says it best. There's 3 things that we do when we leave here. We hopefully write a check for all the candidates here and get this independent piece going. Because what we're all doing right now, I don't know that I even need to say this out loud, but what we're all doing right now is we're creating the framework and the blueprint, especially if the 3 of us win, or all of us win in this independent movement. We're creating the framework and the blueprint for other people to do the same thing in their respective states. Can you imagine the ramifications on American politics if a mechanic from Omaha, an independent mechanic, beats a 2-term incumbent Republican in the red state of Nebraska? The entire country will say, holy shit. Did you see what Nebraska did? Did you see what Florida did? And it's going to tell people, wait, you mean you don't have to be a self-funding billionaire to get elected? Teachers, nurses, carpenters, plumbers, people who sit in front of the computer screen, farmers, they can come out of the woodwork, so I could do this too. And we can help them. Everybody in this room, right? And everything that we're building off of, we can help them. And we can end Citizens United campaign finance reform and get our politics back to where they should be.
Nebraska football's winning too, and there's some mojo happening in Nebraska. And I just want to underscore, this is a chance to disrupt the status quo. This is a chance to challenge the duopoly. This is a chance to send shockwaves around the political world that reverberate globally. That's what Dan has an opportunity to do. And that's what all these candidates have an opportunity to do. There are 9 of them. I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, go to independentveteransofamerica.org. On your table, there's a scan. You can scan to donate, and donate to each of them individually. They need ammunition for the fight. They are outnumbered, they are outgunned, and they need your support. Whatever you can do. And encourage your friends, encourage your families. If you can't donate, you can volunteer, you can post on social media. Nobody made a bigger mistake than he or she who did nothing, because they could only do little. That's what we learned on 9/11, that all of us can do something. So before we wrap, I'm going to ask a bunch of politicians to do something really difficult, to be quiet for a second. And community is not something that happens very often. But community is what we felt on 9/11. Community is what my great friend Coach Mackey builds in his gyms all across the city with young men and women who are a part of Steady Buckets and his program. And we don't have community very often. So today and tonight is about community. And I'm going to ask you all to just take a moment of silence to reflect on what today means to you, the people we lost, and the magnitude of all of it. Just take 1 minute, please. Thank you. Now, take that energy, take that momentum, and do something with it. When you walk out of this room, you're going to look overhead and you're going to see the lights. You're going to see the lights that shine all the way up into the sky that commemorate what this day means. And those lights are among my favorite things in the world because they just keep reaching up to the sky. Last night, my little boy River was on the roof with us and he just said, whoa. He goes, Daddy, it goes all the way up. And that's what we can do. We can go all the way up. We can inspire a new generation. And it starts with the 3 people in this room who are stepping up to lead, and the 6 others that can't be here today that are on our website from South Dakota to California. Mayors, county executives, members of Congress. It happens here. It starts tonight. Thank you all for being here. You can hang around this room till 8 o'clock, and I encourage you to go downstairs and hang out at the bar, experience that community, and don't leave this neighborhood without looking up. And I'll leave you one last thing. The first time I went to the White House, a dear friend of mine, Vietnam veteran Wayne Smith, had been there, and I said, "You got any advice?" He said, "Yes, walk slow. Walk slow." And I've been honored to be in the White House a few times, and every time I do, I walk slow. When you leave here tonight, walk slow. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And cue the music, sir.
Powered by Righteous Media.